Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, our brethren in Georgia, in Kansas, in Texas, and Missouri, and Chicago, Illinois, and to our brethren in Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, Kenya, Zambia, Pakistan, to the United Kingdom, and to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our special episode number 1 on the subject, the opening of the seventh seal. And I would like to begin our study reading tract number 15, page 10. It says, "Now truth clearly points out that the revelation is not made up of something which originated with John's vision, but that it is made up of the things which the sealed book contained, and which were then made known. Since the writings of John recorded the things which the sealed book revealed, at the instant its seals were broken. Inspiration entitled them the Revelation, the sealed things unsealed, the secret things revealed." Tract number 15, page 10 and 11. So, the Shepherd's Rod is very clear that the book of Revelation is not made up of something which originated with John's vision, but rather it is a revelation of the things already recorded in the Old Testament. So, the same with the statement in 2SR 221, saying, "We have stated before that the book of Revelation is a revealing of prophecies and not a prophecy of itself." So, the book of Revelation is the revelation of the entire Old Testament, or the entire prophecies recorded in the Old Testament, as well as the gospel recorded in the New Testament. Now, I would like to read again the statement on 2SR page 9. "The book of Revelation is said to be a closed book, full of symbolical mysteries, incomprehensible to human beings. This is true of all prophetic truths. The one who admits this fact of the book of Revelation automatically confesses that he does not understand the Bible, for all the books of the Holy Writ meet and end in the Revelation. Therefore, to understand that book is to understand the Bible." And we explained several times that the Bible contains the complete formula of the plan of redemption. So I would like to read again the statement in 1 TG number 10, page 18. "The Bible contains the complete plan of salvation for all humanity. How do I know this? I know it because its story begins with creation and ends with the earth made new. Between the first and the last pages of the Bible then lies the complete formula for man's salvation and redemption." Now, brothers and sisters, according to the statement given by Alonzo Jones, I would like to read the statement. It says, "The plain facts of the gospel are always the same and must never be lost sight of." It's written by Elite Wagoner. The plain facts, number 4. "The plain facts of the gospel are always the same and must never be lost sight of. It must also be remembered that the whole Bible is given. You see, the whole Bible is given for the purpose of revealing God to men, and that this is done only through the cross, so that wherever we read, we may be sure that there is something that concerns the great work of salvation." So, the cross is the center of attraction. Concerning the plan of redemption, the cross of Christ is the center of attraction. Here in 2SR 142, it says, "The symbol reveals that God has only one church truth in all ages, and that the cross of Christ is the only center of attraction. So the only center of attraction is the cross of Christ. The same with the throne of God. It is the center of the universe. I think that is found in 1SR. The center of the universe. Now, in timely greetings, I would like to read in 2TG number 12 on page 24. Let's read again the statement. Chapters 4 and 5, we see, contain a scene of a special event which caused the book to be unsealed. 1TG 12:24. Chapters 4 and 5, we see, contain a scene of a special event which caused the book to be unsealed. That which came out of the book is, in the fullest sense, the revelation of Jesus Christ, of the one who only was worthy to open the book. Thus it is that the revelation of Jesus Christ begins with the 6th chapter and ends with the last chapter of the book. The chapters in which are recorded the things which the breaking of the 7 seals disclose. Yes, the revelation consists of the things which were sealed with 7 seals. And in page 25 it says, the revelation then is thus divided into 7 parts. And so when we speak of the 7 seals, we are in reality speaking of the revelation. And the shepherd's rod made it so plain that the only way that we could be able to survive the great and dreadful day of the Lord is to understand the entire book of Revelation. Here in track number 15, page 35, the revelation of the things which are to prepare the way and enable him wholeheartedly to know that now the time is at hand, that a knowledge of the revelation will enable him to stand in the great and dreadful day of the Lord. But accordingly, the promise was, in 2TG number 12, page 30, saying, the revelation, therefore, is to be more fully understood during the judgment of the living. So it is not only understood, but more fully understood during the judgment of the living. Why? Because those people living in that period of time, during the period of the judgment that pertains to the living, they are the only ones who will experience the entire period of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And that is the reason why, in order for them to survive that protected event, the great and dreadful day of the Lord, God bestowed unto them the complete understanding concerning the book of Revelation, in order for them to survive the great and dreadful day of the Lord, as stated in track number 15 on page 35. Now, in track number 1 on page 29 and page 30, I would like to read the portion saying, as the words which Ezekiel was to speak to his people, we found in the book which he ate. The book can be none other than the Bible, from which comes the message culminating in joy, mourning, and woe. Of course, the statement culminating in joy, it is pertaining to the righteous, that is the great day. But culminating in mourning and woe, that is pertaining to the wicked, the dreadful day. And then it says, and lo, a roll of a book was therein, and he spread it before me. And it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe. Ezekiel 2 verse 9 and 10. Thy right in Bisijing, the slaughter in Ezekiel 9. And the woes pronounced in the master's parables, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then said the king to the servants, bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 24 verse 50, 51, and Matthew 22 verse 13. So the voice of inspiration, brothers and sisters, is plainly telling that this antitypical Ezekiel, God gave unto him the Bible. And this antitypical Ezekiel is the prophet by which unto him God bestowed the complete formula of the plan of redemption, because that one, what the Bible contains, the complete formula of the plan of salvation. And the shepherd's rod plainly told us that God delegates no other to be a watchman of his people except Ezekiel. In 1 TG number 22, page 30, it says, aside from Ezekiel, God's mouthpiece, God delegates no other to be a watchman of the people. 1 TG number 22 on page 30. Now, I would like to connect our study to the subject, the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. And at this time, I would like to focus to that statement, using the cross as the dividing line. Now, let us read the statement. So, the cross as the dividing line, brothers and sisters, is synonymous to the statement in 2SR 142 that the cross is the center of attraction of the plan of redemption. And the spirit of prophecy plainly told us on the great controversy. Let us read the statement given by the voice of inspiration. The great controversy, page 488. It says here, all who have received the light upon these subjects are to bear testimony of the great truths which God has committed to them. The sanctuary in heaven is the very center of Christ's work in behalf of men. It concerns every soul living upon the earth. It opens to view the plan of redemption, bringing us down to the very close of time and revealing the triumphant issue of the contest between righteousness and sin. It is of the utmost importance that all should thoroughly investigate these subjects and be able to give an answer to everyone that asketh them a reason of the hope that is in them. The intercession of Christ in man's behalf in the sanctuary above is as essential to the plan of salvation as was his death upon the cross. By his death, he began that work, which after his resurrection, he ascended to complete in heaven. How many years Jesus Christ stayed on this earth? 33 years, right? According to selected messages on book 1, page 69 and page 70. Jesus, the majesty of heaven, he who was equal with God, was in the world 33 years. You think it is just an accident that Jesus Christ, brothers and sisters, stayed on this earth for only 33 years, which is half of the Bible, because the Bible contains 66 books. 66 divided by 2 equals 33. No, it is purposive design. That half of the plan of redemption was revealed in the life of Christ. And half of the plan of redemption was completed in the heavenly sanctuary, according to the great controversy 488 and 489. Now, the shepherd's rod, I would like to read to you the reading in tract number 3, 3rd edition, by which the shepherd's rod declared here in page 92. Christ and the Bible. Christ and the Bible. I would like to read the second paragraph. Christ is the Word incarnate, the Bible, the Word written, or to put it still more specifically, the Bible is Christ in the form of words, and Christ is the Bible in the form of men. Tract number 3, 3rd edition, page 92. The Bible is Jesus Christ in the form of words, but Jesus Christ is the Bible in the form of men. So, that is very plain, brothers and sisters. Now, it is very important to study the climactic point of these events ever recorded in the Bible. That is the time when Jesus Christ will visit the earth, by which at that time, the two things would be in existence. The entire Bible, which is Christ in the form of words, and Jesus Christ, the Bible in the form of men. And that is the reason why the shepherd's rod plainly declared in tract number 1, page 5, saying, the call of Ezekiel to the prophetic office is one of the most interesting experiences of the ancient seers, and the revelation what he saw by the river Chebar is perhaps of greater importance of heaven and earth at this time than is any other vision on sacred record, because in a remarkable way, it reveals that which unites heaven with earth, even as the Dardanelles link two important seas, that this study of Ezekiel's vision, which brings to light earth's being visited visited by the majesty of the universe may aptly be termed the Dardanelles of the Bible. Tract number 1, page 5. It says, the earth being visited by the majesty of the universe, of all the visions ever recorded in the Bible, that predicted event is the most glorious, the most remarkable one ever recorded in the Bible. And I would like to read that statement by which the only one, I think, who can give the absolute answer of such two questions, well, we of ourselves. In tract number 2, page 54, saying, if Jesus were here today, would he recognize us? But I would like to paraphrase the statement to connect to our study. In that predicted event, when Jesus Christ, the majesty of the universe, will visit the earth, would Jesus Christ recognize us? And second, indeed, may I say, would we recognize him? Or can we discern that at that time, Jesus Christ was already on the earth? I would like to read the statement on 1TG number 2 on page 18. I would like to read 1TG number 2, page 18. If on his visitation, now let's apply this to the actual predicted event when Jesus Christ, the majesty of the universe, will visit the earth. If on his visitation we assume that we already see and know enough, have need of nothing more, and cannot be convinced otherwise, then we shall become blind forever, will never be able to see what he wishes us to see. But if we admit that we are blind to spiritual things, that our eyes need to be opened, then Christ will make us see. Such will by experience say, once I was blind, but now I see. The blind man's experience must be ours. What an amazing grace. Now let us proceed to our investigation. That remarkable event when Jesus Christ will visit the earth, by which at that time all controversy will end. Brothers and sisters, now when would that predicted event by which Jesus Christ will visit the earth? I remember the statement in tract number 1 on page 12 saying, in the clear light of these facts, chapter 9 is seen to hold the climactic scene of the vision, describing the awful work which the Lord is to do when, with the cherubim, he visits the earth. It shows the fearsome consequences to those who reject its message. Its blessings means the kingdom lost. Tragic, frightful experience, it shall be the fate of all who refuse now to awake and to know about it, but who choose rather to remain in ignorance of its truth and of the object of the Lord's coming in his throne. Tract number 1, page 12. Now, here's another statement that I would like to read. Tract number 1, page 36. It says that the all happy hour, that statement is applied only to the righteous. All the happy hour. Let's read again, page 36. That the all happy hour is approaching when we shall mount up in this most glorious chariot, so steers our hearts as to cause us fairly to shout the questions, when will this chariot arrive? How long will it stay? So we need to have a concrete, definite answer of these two questions. When will this chariot arrive? And how long will it stay? Although, if we connect page 12, there must be at least 3 questions. In page 12, what is the object of the Lord's coming in his throne? Second, when would be that event that Jesus Christ will visit the earth? And third, how long will it stay? Now, I would like to read tract number 1, page 17. It says, continuing to behold in vision the cherubim, that is the man with the writer's inkhorn, and the glory of God's throne, that is Jesus Christ. the prophets saw the Lord come to the threshold of the house, the church. And as he gave charge to his angel, who was clothed with linen, and who had the writer's ink on by his side, Ezekiel heard him command the man, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Now, brothers and sisters, that statement is plainly indicating that the object of the Lord's coming, together with the cherubim, is to seal the 144,000 living saints. And who are they to be sealed? Only those whose names had been left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Or in other words, after all the names of the wicked under the seventh seal, the congregation among the living, had been completely blotted out. At that time, the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad without a shepherd were not as yet been given the seal of protection. And we will now study closely in this study. When would be the sealing of the 144,000 on the earthly sanctuary will begin, and well, it will end? Because there are many shepherd's rod believers by which they were more interested to the material side rather than to the spiritual side. And they continually ridiculed and mocked us, laughing by saying that on that final day of atonement, since we already declared, as stated by the shepherd's rod, that the occurrence takes place in heaven, and it does not disturb either the dead in their graves or the living in the church, they laugh and scorn with such message. While in reality, it is very important and very critical. Or their attitude, brothers and sisters, is stated in the Great Controversy 430, saying, the condition of the unbelieving Jews illustrates the condition of the careless and unbelieving among professed Christians who are willingly ignorant of the work of our merciful high priest. Willingly ignorant, meaning they deliberately reject the message by turning a deaf ear to this proclamation. I remember the statement in 6 BC. Let us read the statement given by the Voice of Inspiration. 6 BC 10:5-6. I would like to read the portion. It says, because the comparison is like the Jewish people. It says, no excuse for willful ignorance. It says, I wot that through ignorance ye did it, said Peter. But this ignorance did not excuse the action, for they had great light granted unto them. The statement is made that had they known that he was the Prince of Life, they would not have crucified him. But why did they not know? Because they choose not to know. They had no interest to search and study, and their ignorance proved their eternal ruin. They had the strongest evidence on which to base their faith, and they were under obligation to God to accept the evidence He had given. He had given them. Their unbelief made them guilty of the blood of the only begotten Son of the infinite God. But the reality is that the last generation of men had even more complete information rather than to any previous generations. Because we have the Shepherd's Rod publications. But it seems they don't believe the Shepherd's Rod. Because the Shepherd's Rod declared clearly the first aspect of the judgment is bookwork. I would like to read Answerer number 5, page 30. This is the first aspect of the judgment. So there are only two aspects of the judgment, as there are twofold view of sealing, according to tract number 1, page 19. Now, I would like to read. This is the first aspect of the judgment, and being only a bookwork, Daniel 7 verse 10, a work that does not disturb either the dead in the graves or the living in the church, it takes place in heaven. So they're speaking against that message. In reality, they were not speaking against us. They were speaking against the rod. Because it is the shepherd's rod that plainly told us that the first aspect of the judgment, the spiritual side, is only a bookwork. It does not disturb either the dead in the graves or the living in the church. So the statement, there is no disturbance, is the same with the statement in the great controversy that when the irrevocable decision will be pronounced in the heavenly sanctuary, men will still be planting, drinking, because there was no disturbance. The great controversy 490. All unconscious to the fact that the irrevocable decision was already pronounced in the heavenly sanctuary. You think it is not important to know when would that be, the irrevocable decision to be pronounced in the heavenly sanctuary? Brothers and sisters, if the saved ones, I would like to use the term, the saved ones, they themselves also they did not know, then there is no reason that God would condemn the wicked of being in ignorance concerning such occurrence if the saved ones are also in total ignorance. Now, let us go back to our subject, brothers and sisters. There are two events or twofold view of the sealing. The first view takes place in the heavenly sanctuary. That those who failed to receive the seal of the living God, in the first view, all their names will be blotted out. Now, I would like to read tract number 1, page 19 and 20. The sealing, Revelation 7, being the same as the marking, Ezekiel 9, the purification. We thus are given a twofold view of the closing work for the church. Twofold view. The sealing that takes place in the heavenly sanctuary is called the beginning of the harvest. The sealing that takes place in the earthly sanctuary is called the ending of the harvest, because the harvest is a period of time having a beginning and ending. Answerer number 2, page 36. Harvest is a period of time having a beginning and ending, and during its time, men are saved. So the statement, the harvest is past, it cannot be applied to the time when the harvest is still unfinished. So the statement in Jeremiah 8:20, the harvest is past, indicates that the two periods of the harvest is completely ended. The beginning and ending. Now let us read White House Recruiter on page 38. Let us read, brothers and sisters. Then is the harvest of the first fruits past? Of course, it can easily be understood by saying that the sealing of the 144,000 is finished, both in the heavenly and earthly sanctuary. Then is the harvest of the first fruits past, the fruits garnered in, and the tares shut out unto destruction. There in agony, to wail and to gnash their teeth. Now, even after the harvest is finished, the wicked are still alive. Because how could they say, the harvest is past and the summer is ended if they were already dead? Now, I would like to read 1 Symbolic Code number 14, page 11. 1 Symbolic Code number 14, page 11. If the harvest is after the close of provision, why should they say the harvest is past? The summer is ended. For they certainly could not say these words before provision closes. Neither could they after the second coming of Christ, for then they would be dead and could not speak. 1 Symbolic Code number 14, page 11. So the thought on that reading is that the unsealed ones, those who failed to receive the seal of the living God, there is a period of time by which they will say, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. That is what it means by lamentations, mourning, and woe. Ezekiel 2 verse 9 and 10. Before they will be destroyed by such destruction, slaughtering, they will experience first that horrible wail of doom. As stated in tract number 3 on page 71. Page 70 and page 71. the second section of the separation, thus being completed, provisionary time is closed, whereupon from the wicked will be heard the horrible wail of doom. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. This being the dreadful experience of the tares in Babylon in the second section of the harvest, there must, as a type, be a similar and precedent experience for the tares in the Laodicean church in the first section of the harvest. And that is, brothers and sisters, a very sad experience. The shepherd's rod says in 1 SR 185, the disappointment of such a one is greater than we can realize. Experience only can tell the sorrow and grief of such a one in that period of time. But reciprocally, also what joy and gladness to those whose names had been left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Here in 2 SR 102, it says, experience only can tell the joy in one's heart at a time when rescued from everlasting ruin and granted everlasting life without tasting death, merged into eternity's ceaseless ages, a life that measures with the light of God. And this message, brothers and sisters, had been replied by ridicule. Brothers and sisters, they placed themselves in the wrong side. They placed themselves on the negative side. Now, let us read, brothers and sisters, the illustration given in the Shepherd's Rod publications. Now, I would like to read again the statement and White House recruiter. On page 37, it says, they are even destitute of the knowledge that the judgment of the living, not of the dead, is the last message. So the judgment of the dead is not the last message. It is the judgment of the living. And that the only one, and that only those who give ear to the 11th hour call are to be spared in the separation and to make up the last group of servants with the last message. Who are they, brothers and sisters, that they will be spared? Whether it points out to the heavenly sanctuary or earthly sanctuary, only those who give ear to the 11th hour call. What is the 11th hour call? The 9th hour call and the 11th hour call, both of them is pertaining to the judgment. But the 11th hour call is pertaining to the judgment concerning the living. Now let me read to you 2TG. Here in 2TG number 11, page 12 and page 13. It says, now what is the difference between the oil in the lamp and the oil in the vessel? Just this, the oil that is in the lamp that already lightens the traveler's path toward the master's mansion must represent truth in progress. But the oil in the vessels must represent truth that is to lighten one's path after the former truth has accomplished its work. For example, after the harvest investigative judgment of the dead is past, other truths even more important must be introduced for the harvest of the living. I say more important truths because they are concerning the living themselves, concerning those whose own cases are to be weighed in the balances, those who personally are to be judged either as wheat or as tares, either as good fish or as bad fish. Brethren, I would like to declare again that Hotep is the first prophet that God raised up to explain the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Ever since, there was no prophet that had been able to explain the great and dreadful day of the Lord. In General Conference Special, page 39, it says, the judgment of the dead do not even touch the great and dreadful day of the Lord. But we need to realize that Hotep is the prophet that predict the event. He is not the prophet that announced the fulfillment of the event. And supposed to be, of all the Bedians, it must be the Bayesian movement will accept this message. But opposite, they are the very ones who reject this message. Why is it that I would like to say that supposed to be, they must be the very ones who will accept this message? Because they are the one who published this reading material, track number 16. Now let us read again. Track number 16. Page 48. Prophecy and fulfillment. In page 47, it says, inspiration's way of promoting truth and the people's way of accepting it. I would like to read again. Inspiration's way of promoting truth and the people's way of accepting it. Now let us read the first example given. What do we see in these first two manifestations of the Spirit of truth as the Spirit of prophecy? How many manifestations of the Spirit of truth? Two manifestations. Obviously, that the manifestation through Enoch was the precursor of the second, the manifestation through Noah, and that whereas Enoch predicted the end of the world, Noah prepared the way for it. Then it says, thus at the outset of the redemptive work of the Holy Spirit as the spirit of prophecy, He made manifest heaven's procedure in the unfolding of the plan of salvation, which, as we shall see as we progress, has been carried out right up to the present. Then it says, in these two manifestations of the Spirit of prophecy, we see not only heaven's method of unfolding the plan of salvation, but also the people's response, which assume a pattern of unbelief and rebellion, not so much against the prophecy of the event as against the fulfillment of it. Then I would like to go to the portion it says, but it must be remembered that Abraham's announcement of the promise was the prediction, not the fulfillment of it. 430 years later, as the time came for the fulfillment of the prophecy of the possessing of the promised land, the opposition then began. So the second example is that Abraham, he had been given the light, brothers and sisters, to predict the event when God's people will left Egypt and then possess the promised land. And the statement made it so plain that Abraham declared only the event as a prediction, not the fulfillment of it. But the second manifestation of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, is given to Moses. Moses no longer predict the event, but rather announce that the predicted event is now being fulfilled. And the third one, I would like to read. Some 1300 years later, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of prophecy, announced through John the Baptist that the King of Kings was to appear. And though there was scoffing and jeering, there was no hardcore opposition to the prediction itself, not until the fulfillment of John's prediction began to materialize. Or, in other words, all the prophets in the Old Testament, they predicted the event of the arrival of the Messiah. That is the first manifestation of the Spirit of truth. But when God raised up John the Baptist, he no longer predicted the event, but rather announced the fulfillment of that predicted event is now being fulfilled. Supposed to be the Jewish people, the Jewish church, being the custodian of all the inspired writings of the Old Testament, supposed to be, they will be the only ones that could recognize the arrival of the Messiah. But what happens? It is the opposite. They are the very ones who reject the Messiah. And there is a parallelism with the so-called Davidians today. More particularly to the Bayesian movement, because they claim that they are the one, the custodians of the writings of Hotep, that they are the one who bound up the writings of Hotep, all of them. But the fact is that they were in total ignorance of the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary, by which even that reading materials, by which they are alone who published that reading materials, track 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and I think up to 21. But they themselves are total in ignorance of the things written into that reading materials that they publish. And they were opposing to their own reading materials. Because when we began to introduce this statement given in 2TG number 12. Now, read carefully 2TG number 12. 2TG number 11. Rather, 2TG number 11, page 13. It says, let us read again. I say more important truths because they are concerning the living themselves. What truth to be introduced? The harvest of the living. Brethren, prophecy must be fulfilled. You cannot defeat the prophecy. Nobody can defeat the prophecy. I remember the statement in track number 6 that if you will fight against the prophecy, you are entering a fight by which you could never win and you will never win. Brothers and sisters, here in track number 6, page 73, we too are heartsick that you have, as the Jews of old, deeply involved yourselves in a war against the spirit of prophecy, a war which you cannot win. Nobody can defeat the prophecy. Prophecy must be fulfilled. I remember the statement in track number 12 saying that the sure word of prophecy never fails to tell the truth. Track number 12, page 57. Thus the more sure word of prophecy which never fails to tell the truth. Never fails to tell the truth. And the shepherd's rod declared clearly in track number 6 on page 4, it says, by the prophecies only can we prove or disprove, know what we believe and believe what we know, and with safety accept or reject any message. Track number 6, page 4. By the prophecies only can we prove or disprove, accept or reject any message with safety, because our decision we base upon the prophetic word of God as the foundation of our faith. The only foundation. Evangelism 196. Prophecy is the foundation of our faith. Any other foundation cannot stand. Now, what is the prophecy recorded, given in the shepherd's rod? Brothers and sisters, the statement that the subject concerning the harvest must be introduced. Some will say, it was introduced by B.T. Hotep. Yes, the harvest that pertains to the living, it was introduced by B.T. Hotep. That is absolutely right. But the first manifestation of the Spirit of truth, there must be two manifestations. What is the first manifestation? Introducing, predicting the event, the great and dreadful day of the Lord. But there is no such occurrence according to track number 16. If you will say that the two manifestations of the Spirit of truth have been fulfilled in B.T. Hotep, it says that is erroneous, because God never used such method. It is illogical. How could he announce the fulfillment of the event at the time when the event was still future? Now, let us read again the statement. So, I would like to read that statement in their own reading materials. Let us read. On page 55. Had Miller, let us go to the example given. Had Miller been given light to announce both the termination of the 2300 days and also the judgment hour, he would have two messages to declare. The former already accomplished, the latter not yet begun. Therefore, erroneously declaring both to be in one and the same period of time. That is erroneous. Brothers and sisters, how many years God used up William Miller? 25 years. From 1818 to 1844. How many years that God used B.T. Hotep? 25 years. 1930 to 1955. Because according to Jezreel letter number 2, page 2, how we will get the message of the judgment that pertains to the living? The answer is clear to all. We will get it in the same way we got in the judgment that pertains to the dead. There must be two manifestations of the Spirit of truth. First, William Miller, then Ellen G. White. Then in the judgment that pertains to the living, first B.T. Hotep, antitypical Elijah John the Baptist, and then antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. Antitypical Elijah John the Baptist predicted the event, but antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, he will announce that such predicted event is now being fulfilled. The judgment for the living is now in progress. What is the declaration of B.T. Hotep? In track number 3, page 43. As the cleansings called for in the parables and in Malachi's prophecy have never taken place, the investigative judgment of the living is obviously then yet future. Still future in the days of Bitihotep. And it was written in 1934. But Bitihotep himself, when the event is actually taking place, the agency of God on earth will be the one to proclaim that the event has actually taken place. 2TG. Let's read in 2TG. Number 12, page 29. It says, the revelation, moreover, in the following verses, again and again, endeavors to make us see that the event there portrayed is the judgment in session. Fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come. Inscribed in present tense. Then it says, John truly penned it as a prophecy, but when it actually takes place, then God's agency on earth, the spirit of prophecy in the church, is to proclaim that the event has actually taken place. But we already explained that there are two manifestations of the spirit of prophecy. The first manifestation is to predict the event, and the second manifestation is to announce that the predicted event is now being fulfilled or taking place. And it is well explained here in track 16, page 55. Let's read again the statement. In consequence, the prophecy that the hour of this judgment is come, who have had to be declared ahead of time, out of time, which at that time would have been a false declaration, a thing which the Holy Spirit never makes. Track number 16, page 55. So let us read. The example given is William Miller. If God gave light to William Miller, to manifestation of the Spirit of truth, then it is a false declaration, according to this reading, by which the Holy Spirit never makes. Now, if the two manifestation was given to Bitihotep, then it is a false declaration. How could Bitihotep announce by which he himself did not know? He confessed, saying that he has no knowledge when the judgment of the living will begin, either exact or approximate. Then how could he be able to announce? He will announce the thing by which he did not know. That is a false declaration. And then it says, let it be emphasized that the first angel's message does not say, fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment shall come, but rather that the hour of His judgment is come. This scripture clearly shows that the truth of the judgment had to be declared not before, but at the exact time the judgment convened. Also that His truth is in all respects, meet in due season, given neither too soon nor too late, and that while we are taught truth, we are at the same time made to realize concerning God's visiting His people to make known to them the time to which they have come. Now, you think, brothers and sisters, that message will be proclaimed after probation closes? You will say, fear God and give glory to Him, at the time when there is no more chance to accept such worship because probation closes? That statement is perfectly corroborating to the statement in 1 SR 156 and 157, saying that God has no intention to make the judgment known prior. I would like to read 1 SR page 156. It says, God did not intend to make the judgment known until after the hour had come. For this reason, inspiration inscribed the occurrence in present tense is come in order to be grammatically correct. 1 SR 156, 157. Who dictated John the Revelator? Christ Himself. Why is it that Christ gave such divine command to John the Beloved to write it in present tense? The shepherd's rod made it so plain, indicating that God will not made known completely the judgment message not until after the hour had come. Therefore, Bitihotep has no complete understanding concerning the judgment that pertains to the living, because if God would reveal all to him, then it is grammatically incorrect. And the prophet himself testify here in answerer number 1 on page 95. It says, So while it was not exactly understood beforehand what the nature of the event would be, yet when the fullness of the time came and no other event occurred but this one, it was thereby identified as the one predicted in Ezekiel 4 in connection with the end of the 400 prophetic years when the scroll was to unroll another third. B.T. Hotep says they did not exactly understand the nature of the event because God has no intention to reveal it prior to the actual time. And He Himself, brothers and sisters, in page 94, it says, in the statement in question, answerer number 1, page 94, in the statement in question, the rod has no reference to the investigative judgment. The message sets no date, either exact or approximate. But it was grossly misconstrued by Benny Davidian. They will say the message sets no date. It is pointing to the message that understood by B.T. Hotep. He testified that he did not set any date. When would be the judgment for the dead will close and when would be the judgment for the living begins. But he did not say that it will never be made known. He himself declared clearly, unless the close of the judgment for the dead and the commencement for the living be made known to us, we would have no present truth while the judgment for the living is in session. 2SR 164. But the answer is found in 2 TJ 12:29. It says that, but when the actual event, the judgment is in session, the agency of God on earth, the spirit of prophecy in the church will announce that the event has actually taken place. And there is no other prophet predicted in the Bible that he will announce the commencement of the judgment for the living except antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. Ponder deeply, brethren, before everything is too late. Let us defeat the devil, brothers and sisters. Now, let's go back again to the reading in 2 TG 11:13. It says, I say more important truths because they are concerning the living themselves, concerning you and I. This message is concerning you and I. I'm only announcing, proclaiming the event, brothers and sisters, concerning the last and the final day of atonement. That is the only task, the only work that has been committed by God unto us, to proclaim the event. But it is not a guarantee. Even those who proclaim the message, that because they are the one who proclaim the message, it was guaranteed that their names will not be blotted out. No, if they will not be faithful, brothers and sisters, still, we cannot receive the seal. To receive the seal of God is to be faithful. But there is no such faithfulness considered by God if you reject the heavenly summons. The shepherds have declared clearly that there is no sanctification. I would like to read this reading in answerer number 4. In page 13, it says, there is no Bible sanctification for those who cast a part of the truth behind them. Testimonies for the Church, volume 1, 338. For this work cannot go in the heart while the light on any part of the truth is rejected or neglected. The sanctified soul will not be content to remain in ignorance, but will desire to walk in the light and to seek for greater light. As a miner digs for gold and silver, so the follower of Christ will seek for truth as for hidden treasures and will press from light to a greater light, ever increasing in knowledge. He will continually grow in grace and in the knowledge of the truth. And then it says, many do not exemplify the truth in their lives. They have special exercises upon sanctification, yet cast the word of God behind them. They pray sanctification, sing sanctification, and shout sanctification. But the present truth, which is the channel, the only medium, the only channel that we arrive into such sanctification is the present truth. It is not regarded, but it is trampled underfoot. Brothers and sisters, the heavenly summons, I think, is one of the most important present truth under the judgment that pertains to the living. As stated in 2SR 164, it says, but when our high priest shall begin the atonement for the living, there must be a message of present truth. 2SR 164. And then it says, unless the close of the judgment for the dead and the commencement for the living be made known to us, we would have no present truth while the judgment for the living is in session. That statement can be easily understood that before Jesus Christ will begin the atonement for the living. What atonement? Blotting out of names. There must be first present truth, and that present truth is the knowledge when the judgment for the dead will close, and then the knowledge when the judgment for the living is now in progress, because God cannot reveal it prior to the time, because it is inscribed in present tense. It must be at the time when the one is past and the other began. So that statement in answerer number 1 on page 94 and 95 saying, brothers and sisters, it says, the time of the cessation of the one event. Answerer number 1, page 94 and 95, the time of the cessation of the one event and the beginning of the other is not to be known until the one is past and the other begun. Or in other words, the unfoldment of this message cannot be bestowed by God because present truth comes only from God. 11 symbolic code, number 3, page 5, and God cannot bestow it concerning the last manifestation of the Spirit of truth, which is pertaining to the judgment concerning the living, not until the judgment of the dead is closed and then the judgment of the living begins, in order to be grammatically correct. Brothers and sisters, if you believe the Bible, more particularly to the book of Revelation, why is it that the shepherd's rod says that the heart and the key of the subject concerning the seven seals is Revelation chapter 5? I would like to read that statement in 2SR. Let us read 2SR 193. 2SR page 193. But the 5th chapter, separated from the 4th and the 6th, cannot be comprehended. For these chapters contain one subject, namely the seven seals. Then it says, the 5th chapter is mentioned because it is the heart and key of the subject. If you could not understand chapter 5, brothers and sisters, being the key of the subject of the seven seals, there is no possibility that you could understand the subject of the seven seals, because that is the key. And the shepherd's rod said that to open the locked door of prophecy without the key is to break the door. But that door being unbreakable, it is impossible to open it without the key. Track number 12, page 63. To open without a key, a locked door, is of course to break the door. But being unbreakable, the locked door of prophecy is impossible to open without the key. And what is the key of the subject, the seven seals? Revelation chapter 5. What is Revelation chapter 5 from verse 1 to verse 14? Now, I would like to ask all the Berean, do you believe the declaration of Revelation chapter 5? Sit down, ponder deeply, kneel down several times, and ask God understanding of Revelation chapter 5. Do we believe Revelation chapter 5? Now, I would like to read Revelation chapter 5 verse. Let us now try to evaluate our belief in the Bible as explained by the shepherd's rod. Let us read Revelation chapter 5. It says here, Revelation chapter 5, verse 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside sealed with seven seals. Verse 2. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof. Verse 3. And no man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders said unto me, weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof. Now, do we believe that declaration given in the Bible, that concerning the book sealed with seven seals, no one can open it? How much more to explain? Even to open. You see, even to open, no man, neither in heaven, nor in earth, nor under the earth. It points out to all created beings that not even one of the creature created by God, even the devil, all the fallen angels, even the good angels, all humanity, no man can open that book. How much more to explain? What does it mean, brethren? Did you notice that the prophets of Baal or the prophets of the devil, nobody tried to explain the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary? The only explanation that was given concerning the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary is the commencement. It was commenced in October 22, 1844. And that knowledge was bestowed by God only to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But the devil had not even able to counterfeit it. There are many truths in the Bible that the devil can easily counterfeit. But concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, it is guaranteed by God. No one can explain it. The shepherds had made it so plain. Even John the Revelator, the author of that book, the book of Revelation, he himself could not explain it. Now let us read in 2TG, number 44, on page 30 and page 31. I would like to read. We as Christians have obviously failed to note that if the secret things of God, matter not how simple, were to be unsealed at any time by anyone, inspiration would never in the first place have concealed them in symbols and parables. Christendom is still blind to the fact that to attempt to break into the mysteries of God would be to attempt to defeat His purposes. Yes, to try to break into the divine code is to try the impossible. And then it says, for example, even when the time did come for the book sealed with 7 seals to be unsealed, Revelation 4 and 5, no one in heaven or on earth was able to do so, but only the Lion of the tribe of Judah could break the seals and look into the things which afterwards were shown to John, the Revelator. And though John wrote them, he himself could not before time explain them. Then how can we do such before time and without the inspiration of the same Spirit who dictated them? But the absolute answer is that 2TG 24 on page 16. It says, are not these tests strong enough to convince any of you that the secret things of God, such as the cancelled prophecies, are not disclosed by finite men, no, not by the devil either, that when God wants a thing to be a secret, it remains cancelled until He Himself reveals it. Then when it is revealed, all are to know that God Himself is at work. 2TG 24, page 16. Now think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. Ever since, no one had been able to explain the proceedings that occurs in the heavenly sanctuary. The shepherd's rod made it so plain in track number 15 on page 13. I would like to read. Track number 15, page 13. Both seers distinctly declare that the event which they saw was the judgment. The difference between the two scenes is that Daniel was led to look into the sanctuary while preparations were being made for the judgment to convene. Whereas John was led to look into the sanctuary after the judgment had been set up. In fact, John not only saw the judgment in progress, but he saw the whole proceedings from start to finish. What is the vision of John the Revelator? The entire proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary from start to finish, from October 22, 1844, up to the time when the entire tribunal will vacate the judgment throne in the heavenly sanctuary. From start to finish, it was given by God to John the Revelator. So that statement can be easily understood that the entire book of Revelation is a revelation of the entire proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. But the shepherds have declared clearly, though John is the one who wrote the book of Revelation concerning the entire proceedings that takes place in the heavenly sanctuary, 2TG 44, page 31, he himself could not explain it. So the only duty of John the Beloved is to write all the necessary information concerning the entire proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary from start to finish, but he had not been able to explain how, when. Then the voice of inspiration says, and nobody can explain it. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, Jesus Christ. Even the devil either cannot explain it. Now, if we have been able to explain now the entire proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, and you are saying that we are possessed by the spirit of the devil, then you are saying that Jesus Christ was defeated. Because the Bible declared nobody could be able to explain it. Even the good angels, even all the righteous in the heavenly sanctuary. But the statement, even under the earth, who are they under the earth? That is the evil angels. The devil and all his angels could not be able to explain it. It was sealed by God that the only one who could explain it is the Spirit of Christ. So if that proceedings is revealed, then all are to know that God himself is at work. Now, you are contributing this revelation to the devil, brothers and sisters, which is a sin against the Holy Ghost. The unpardonable sin. Think it thoroughly, brethren. Would you think the Bible is telling a lie? What is the 7 seals? What is that book? Sealed with 7 seals. Is there anybody could be able to open and explain that book? Nobody. Even the devil, even the fallen angels. No one. Only the lion in the tribe of Judah. That is Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ will explain it prior to the time when probation closes. And it's hard to imagine, brothers and sisters, that the Bejan saying that this proclamation, the entire proceedings from 1844, October 22, up to the general close of provision, the whole proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, they say that we got it through the spirit of the devil. So, the declaration in the Bible was broken because the declaration says nobody could explain it except the lion in the tribe of Judah, except Jesus Christ. It is called the testimony of Jesus. Now, let us go back again to 2 TG 11:13. Brethren, I love you all. I love so much all Shepherd's Rod believers. Even though you did not love me, even though almost hated me, but I love you all. I love all Bayesian movements. I know they were good people, but apology, our goodness cannot save us because our goodness in the sight of God is only a filthy rags. Only the righteousness of Christ can save us. Now, I would like to read 2 TG number 11. 2 TG number 11 on page 13. And tell me, where is the proceedings mentioned in this paragraph? Tell me. Find your explanation in the golden bowl. 2SR 289. Then you have no trouble in knowing the difference between truth and error and eliminating, brothers and sisters, or the ever-ready trap of deception. 2 TG 11:13. I say more important truths because they are concerning the living themselves, concerning those whose own cases are to be weighed in the balances. Now tell me, where is the place that our cases will be weighed in the balances? Is it earth or heaven? This truth is concerning you and I. We are now being weighed in the balances in the heavenly sanctuary. There is no such statement that our cases are weighed in the balances on the earthly sanctuary. It is in the heavenly sanctuary. Can you imagine the statement in White House Recruiter that there is no more damaging darkness? I would like to read that statement again. White House Recruiter on page 32. It says, and what more damaging darkness? It is very damaging, brothers and sisters. A terrible, damaging darkness. And what more damaging darkness could he seek to keep them in than in ignorance of that which God would have them to know while their judgment is pending, while they are being weighed in the balances of the sanctuary? None, absolutely none. Look at this statement in the Great Controversy, 491. The Great Controversy, page 491, it says, watch ye therefore, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. Mark 13, verse 35 and 36. Now, what coming mentioned here, if you will connect another statement in the writings of Sister White? Now, let us read Testimonies for the Church. Volume 2, page 190. Let us read. Volume 2, page 190. Although, I will not read the entire paragraph. You can read at your own leisure. I will only read the portion saying, what time is here referred to? Because it is Mark 13, verse 35 and 36. So here it says, what time is here referred to? Not to the revelation of Christ in the clouds of heaven to find a people asleep? No, but to his return from his ministration in the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary, when he lays off his priestly attire and clothed himself with the garments of vengeance. And when the mandate goes forth, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. That proclamation is not pointing to the general clause of provision. Pointing first to the irrevocable decision in the church Sabbath keepers under the banner of the third angel's message. When would that be? On that final day of atonement. Our destiny is forever fixed. Who said that? The shepherd's rod. Track number 15. 28 and 29. In the typical atonement, everyone's destiny among the professed people of God was forever fixed. Those who complied with the demands of the law were left to live, and those who did not were cut off from among the people. Thus, it must also be in the antitypical atonement. In page 29, so in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the judgment of the first two sittings, the time to separate the tares from the wheat, the bad fish from the good, from among both the dead and the living, the only cases considered are those of professed people of God. Now, we profess the Gideon as the people of God. The only cases to be considered on that day of atonement, this coming day of atonement, March 27, 2021, in Bible calendar, October 10, 2022, is more pertaining to you and I. We profess shepherd's rod believers. And this is the message that we're introducing to you to prepare our lives. Our announcement is only the event, but concerning the people who are to be among the 144,000 whose names had remained in the Lamb's Book of Life, we did not know. Only God knows. The message is only a proclamation to avoid that we need to humble down in the presence of God, repent, and for sure, I do fully believe that if the only desire in our hearts is to save us and to save others, then there is no reason that God will blot out our names. But if our character, brothers and sisters, our attitude, we speak evil to other people, backbite other people, mentioning their names, ponder deeply the description of the 144,000. In their mouths found no guile. Now, I would like to read again the statement here. In the Great Controversy 491. Watch ye therefore, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. And Sister White says in page 190 in volume 2, that is not the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, but Christ's second coming to the most holy place. What is the second coming of Jesus Christ to the most holy place? Bringing the names of the 144,000, those that had been left retained in the Lamb's Book of Life. That is very plain in 2SR, right? 241. That Jesus Christ will return, saying, 2SR 241. I would like to read the portion saying, when the investigation of the dead is finished, then he comes with the names of the living saints, first with the 144,000. Jesus Christ will return to the most holy place, bringing the names of the 144,000. And that is why we are studying together. Let us help each other to be among that glorious company, the names that had been brought by Jesus Christ into the most holy place, by which the foolish virgins had not been able to enter into that door because their names had been blotted out. That is the only aim of this study. Now, supposed to be you are the true headquarters. For us, it is not a robbery. We have no headquarters. You are the true headquarters. Our only desire is to have our names written in the Lamb's Book of Life. That statement in track number 1 really give me a full of courage, brothers and sisters. In track number 1, page 45, I would like to read this reading. Indeed, you're accepting the truth, that is the present truth. Indeed, you're accepting the truth and obeying it is the only thing that will forever ensure your membership with the redeemed. To ensure our membership with the redeemed in the church eternal, and that the only book that is worthwhile having your name in is the Lamb's Book of Life. The only book that is worthwhile having your name in is the Lamb's Book of Life. Track number 1 on page 45. So it says here in the Great Controversy 491, perilous is the condition of those who, growing weary of their watch, turn to the attractions of the world. While the man of business is absorbed in the pursuit of gain, while the pleasure lover is seeking indulgence, while the daughter of passion is arranging her adornments, it may be in that hour the judge of all the earth will pronounce the sentence, thou art weighed in the balances and are found wanting. You think that message is not a serious message, brethren? The irrevocable decision in the heavenly sanctuary. And then you will laugh and say, look at this false prophet. He says that on that final day of atonement, there is no material side. It will not disturb the dead in the graves or the living in the church. And then they said, in short, nothing will happen. Then it says, what a foolishness. Foolishness? It is the shepherds who declared it. It is Sister White who declared it. All unconscious to the fact. The same with the Jewish people. There is no material side that happened. When God's Spirit had been withdrawn in the Jewish nation, nothing happened. As a matter of fact, it was opposite. They are the one who are killing the apostles. But they themselves, nothing happened to them. Now let us read the great controversy. And maybe that will also happen. After that day of atonement, those who reject the message of this proclamation, nothing happened to them. They will continually laugh, persecute, or speak evil, because that's what the Bible and the Shepherd's Rod and the prophecy does teaches. It says in the Great Controversy 614, when God's presence was finally withdrawn from the Jewish nation, priests and people knew it not. Though under the control of Satan and swayed by the most horrible and malignant passions, they still regarded themselves as the chosen of God. Why? Because there was no material side. But the spiritual side is that God's Spirit completely withdrawn from the Jewish church. Then it says, the ministration in the temple continued, sacrifices were offered upon its polluted altars, and daily the divine blessing was invoked upon a people guilty of the blood of God's dear Son and seeking to slay His ministers and apostles. So when the irrevocable decision of the sanctuary has been pronounced and the destiny of the world has been forever fixed, the inhabitants of the earth will know it not. The forms of religion will be continued by a people from whom the Spirit of God has been finally withdrawn. And the satanic zeal with which the prince of evil will inspire them for the accomplishment of his malignant designs will bear the semblance of zeal for God. That will happen on March 27, 2021. The Spirit of God will finally be withdrawn in the Tuhon Beast domain, typifying the Jewish nation. But there is no material side. Yes, there is no material side. All of us knew that there was no material side. But the material side, brothers and sisters, is coming nearer and nearer after that event. And if there will, I would like to say again, September 22, 2022, remember this date, September 22, 2022, if nothing will happen, if there is no material side, up to that time, then, as I've said, I promise, I will make a public renunciation, brothers and sisters. And at that time, that is the time that I need to confess that what I did teach, I teach it on my own. And it does not come from God. But I'm so sure, brethren, if you will wait that time, 100% you will be the losers. 100% you will be the losers. So, hoping that God would help us and awaken our spiritual senses before everything is too late. Thank you very much, brethren. To repeat again, apology if I say something wrong, because sometimes in our human passion, we can say which is not really appropriate. But the only thing that I would like to say, God knoweth my heart. I am sincere and honest. I might make mistakes, but my only wish and goal is to proclaim this message, to warn all my fellow Shepherd's Rod believers, to warn all my fellow Sabbath keepers, to warn all my fellow Christians, and to warn all the fellow men, whether they are non-Christians or atheists. This message is intended to all humanity, because the time, brothers and sisters, is no longer far distant. The time is very short, drawing nearer and nearer. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.